Alright, hear me out. I know I said I wasn't going to cover celebrations, but I came across the full set list. I see a bunch of people doing, their ranking slash thoughts video on it. And I was like, yo, there's only 50 cards. We could probably get it done in 20 minutes. It'll be fun to take a look at the HD stuff the week the set is coming out. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Alright, roll the intro. Hey Gengar Gang, what is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another video. In today's video, friends, we take a look at Pokebeach, which is now having the full set list of all the trading cards up here, ready for view, and I'm super excited. But, wanted to take a look, wanted to take a peek, and really just kind of see some of this stuff for the first time in English, not in some shifty back alley eBay video, or YouTube video, I should say, rather, because it's kind of weird. It's like, if the set leaked and you have the cards, why does your video look like absolute crap? Record in 4K on your phone, assuming you have a more modern phone, and post it to the internet. I've never understood. Anyways, I'm ranting. Look, if you like today's video, make sure to leave a like on the video, and as always, if you're not part of the Gengar Gang already, feel free to subscribe to join our happy little community. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this article. As always, article will be down below if you are interested in checking out the video, the article itself, and of course, definitely feel free to let me know if I forget to add the link. I will do so immediately. Alright, so first up we have Ho-Oh. So, couple things to note. Yeah, that Pikachu logo be abrasive, and it gets more abrasive as time goes on. It's actually pretty funny because this is probably one of the people's biggest gripes about this. And the other thing I understand, and I could be very wrong about this, is that this is not holographic. If you've been collecting the larger first partner pack promos, those actually have a holographic stamp on them. I think the opposite is true for this. So while those were regular cards with a holographic 25 stamp, these are going to be holographic cards with a non-holographic 25 set stamp. So that's the first thing to note. Second thing to note, here is our first look at the set symbol, which I guess is pretty cool. And then as you can see, it is numbered 1 of 25 and is a rare. So Ho-Oh, a good looking card. I love the little Japanese artwork that you're getting in the back there. It's very, appropriately themed for a Johto Pokemon, enough said. Next up is Reshiram, and Reshiram looks almost like a cave painting. I mean, not necessarily my favorite, but, it's almost very sterile the way that they drew the Pokemon there. But we shall certainly, I guess try to appreciate it for what it's worth. Next up on the list is Kyogre, and this is one of my favorite cards in the set, especially from the first 25 cards. Reasons being, there's a little splash of color there that I think you don't quite get with the Reshiram, right? And I think now that I've seen Kyogre, or even Ho-Oh, right? You get so many different colors that it doesn't sort of blend in or wash out, right? With Reshiram, it's black and white. Like, the card is red, and that's great. Every fire Pokemon card is red, though. But with Kyogre, they could have gone the tacky way and just made it all blue, but they didn't. They got, you obviously have a lot of blue because you have some Team Magma, some Team Aqua folks swimming with the Pokemon, but I do like the fact that they went out of their way to include in the artwork and in the background, really, a little bit of coral that really helps the Pokemon itself pop off the front of the card, which is really, really nice. Next up is Palkia, and Palkia, it literally looks like the cover for Shining Pearl or Brilliant Pearl, whatever it's called. But yeah, I'm really kind of like weirded out by this. It almost looks like a way back in the day CG generated image, and you can tell it is because the illustrator is 5-man graphics, so you can tell that it is in fact CG generated. It looks dope, don't get me wrong, but it almost looks like a video game scene as opposed to anything else. And again, not a fan of whenever they just kind of throw like a random background about it. I think they could have done a little bit more to get that card to pop. Next up is the Full Art Pikachu. This is a reimagining of the old school Pikachu from base set. One of my favorite cards. The Pikachu logo, as you notice, has flipped, but one of the things that I really appreciate is that they kind of remove the borders on the original card so you could see more of the full picture, and I gotta say, it is a really, really nice card. So you can see there's a Caterpie up here, there's a Butterfree up here, and there's, I believe, a Paris or a Parasect back here, and those are the 3 Pokemon that I were able to identify, but I'm sure there might even be more that I'm not seeing right now. That might even be an Oddish, because there's a little bit of blue like right around Mitsuhiro Arita's name. There's a little bit of blue. It wouldn't surprise me if that was an Oddish. So yeah, really nice card. I think that's going to be one of the standouts from this particular set. Probably going to be very common because it is in the actual base set of Celebrations, but I still think it's a really neat card. Next up is Flying Pikachu. Flying Pikachu was one of the OG promo cards from way back in the day, and now it's been reimagined. So if you look, the illustrator has changed, and so it is a completely different illustrator now, but it's basically like copying that artwork and then, you know, adding some artistic flair to it. I appreciate the fact that they went out, they went out of their way to do this. If you notice, this is just Pikachu, but this is a full art Pikachu, but it's not a V, it's not a V Max, it's just Pikachu. This is a Pikachu V, so interesting little thing there. Not quite sure why that decision was made, but I mean, sure, why not? Next up, you get Flying Pikachu V Max, and this one I think is actually hilarious because they just kind of double down on the Flying Pikachu thing, which I think is great, right? A couple things to note. I don't think we've ever really seen a plane outside of like Team Rocket in the anime or something of that nature, so this is actually pretty neat. It's a really interesting plane, I thought, but other than that, really cool card. Obviously it is a Dynamax or a VMAX, whatever you choose to call it, so it is doing all of those things and it works in the same way for those mechanics. Next up is Surfing Pikachu, obviously another classic Pokemon promo card that is now being brought back and reimagined using CG works. Again, really pretty card. Notice one thing, they are moving that logo around quite a bit from image to image. They really, at least for the Pikachu cards, thought about ways of putting it in ways that would not obscure the Pokemon itself. And if you notice, at least in these 3 images, the Pikachu is not touching the Pikachu, which I think is pretty neat. When we go back to just regular cards, though, you'll notice that it's just layered straight on top of the Pokemon or the, artwork box where the Pokemon could be, right? Zekrom is another one of those Pokemon. It's just like, it looks like an old schooly artwork, which I guess is pretty neat. One of the reasons I think they went so simple with these particular cards is because we know for a fact later on in the set we're gonna see the reprints from the black and white base set. So I think they kind of went simple on these, given the fact that they, they basically have 4 cards out of a 50 card set total. So, give them 2 like lackluster cards, give them 2 reprint cards, everyone will be happy. And if you do notice, they are in fact matching, so yes, they do in fact look at each other with matching artwork, which again, I think is pretty cool. Next up is Mew, obviously a fan favorite, very colorful card. I think we all kind of understand that Ryan very much likes colorful cards nowadays, so this is definitely one of my favorites. It's really simple, right? It's just Mew being Mew, but I do think there is such a thing as a simple beauty, and I think this particular card hits that very much on the head. Xerneas is another one of those very colorful, very pretty cards. This one almost looks like a watercolor painting, which I think is really nice, and you get that sort of like shimmering water effect, which again helps this card stand out from the pack. Cosmog, the only reason I like this Cosmog is because, you definitely want to not get in the bag. Also, let's not forget that this Pokemon is hilariously lightweight compared to its other evolutions. I've always found that quite heavy. And then, let's not forget that the Pokemon trainer always helps the cause here, right? So it's always nice when they include like a character either from the video game or the manga that helps sort of bring things in the right way. Next up is, Cosmoan. So ditto, same thing, right? Cosmog is super lightweight, but here we go. Cosmoan weighs 2 1,200 pounds. Don't know how that thing is resting comfortably on a pillow unless it is actually levitating at some point. So that's an interesting tidbit. Again, really pretty card. I think it really just captures an image that we otherwise probably would not have gotten to see in a trading card, which I think is really dope, and I think really helps make this card another one of those cards that stands out a little bit. Next up is Lunala. Not really gonna, beat this over the head much. Obviously, still trainer Pokemon now. You get like a really nice angle. There looks like they're looking at the sun, or at least the lighter part of the day, which is really nice. I believe next up, yeah. So this is where things get weird. So we don't get, it doesn't go like Lunala and then Solgaleo. It goes Lunala and then jump straight to Zacian. I get that they were sort of like trying to check off random cards from random areas, so I think that is what influenced this, but just a random observation on my point. The Zacian card is probably one of my favorites, and I think a lot of people are agreeing with that. Personally, I think a major reason for that is Arita drawing this card. Arita just has a way of capturing Pokemon and really kind of stabilizing the image in a trading card, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate that enough about him. A lot of people can draw Pokemon, a lot of people can draw great images of Pokemon, but the truth of the matter is, not every image of a Pokemon belongs on a Pokemon card, and this card is a great example of how a skilled and talented artist who understands that rule can really capture an image that looks amazing on a Pokemon card. And I think, this is pure evidence of that right here. Next up, we do have the Groudon. This one is a little less colorful, right? This one, unlike the Kyogre one, with the Groudon one, they definitely went a little bit differently. They, stayed with the very red and black theme, which is very common for Groudon. And obviously you have Team Magma in this one, and yes, much like the Reshiram and Zekrom, these two Pokemon, if put side by side, would be looking at each other, quote unquote, with sort of matching artwork. Next up, we have the Zamazenta. Again, this is another one of those cards that matches its counterpart, so the Zacian would be looking at it, and again, Arita, so unsurprisingly, not really much of a surprise there that this card looks dope and is probably going to be a beloved card. Yveltal is next, and if the counterpart Pokemon had a very watercolor-esque color to it, this one has a very watercolor-esque coloring to it too. One thing I will note is that what I really like about this card is that for Xerneas, he was sort of like pushing waves of color or life, I assume, outwards. Yveltal is soaking it inward, so you can see it kind of swirling in towards the Pokemon itself. Again, a nice little touch given the lore behind those Pokemon. Dialga looks, again, very similar to its counterpart Palkia, and that is, again, probably by no surprise. It also wouldn't surprise me, and here's a theory that I wouldn't push outside of this YouTube channel, but it wouldn't surprise me if these are still images from the games that are set to come out a little bit later this year. And the only reason I say that is because I realize that these are two of the only cards that I've seen so far that look so video game-esque. Like, even other Pokemon cards that were CG generated don't quite look as, video gamey as these do. So something, I urge you to consider. It really wouldn't surprise me if they snuck that in there, and then maybe there's like a promo card that gets released alongside the games or something like that, where this is like a full art or something like that. Just a random thing. Here we go with the Solgaleo, 507 pounds, which has always really confused me because I still fail to understand how he's metal, like he's a steel type Pokemon, and it's just so lightweight. He's so aerodynamic. I personally really like this Pokemon. I think the white with the red tips and the blue galaxy head is a super dope design for a Pokemon anyway. So it's one of those things. I really do appreciate this card. And then again, you get a more sunny day type vibe over here, which I think really helps this card stand out as well. Next up is the Lugia, which again, matching artwork with its counterpart Ho-Oh. Really, really nice contrast in this particular card, right? The Pokemon is this sort of whitish gray with the blue belly, but everything in the background is more that red sort of Japanese artwork style, and I think that really helps this card stand out, even though, strangely enough, it is the Guardian of the Sea, so you assume that somewhere along this way there would have been some reference to the oceans, but, you know, I really like the way this card looks, and there are similar poses for Lugia in the TCG, so the one thing I will say is that I am a little sad that maybe they should have gone that route and really kind of, you know, taken a different look or a different angle at Lugia. I'm one of those weirdos who like really considers the history of the TCG and how Pokemon are typically depicted, and so I really would like to see a different look at Lugia, whether it be from a different angle or something of that nature. Now we're getting into the trainer section, so you have Professor's Research. Obviously, the reason why this is like a crazy card, crazy quote unquote, is because his hand is reaching outside the artwork to write on the area where, you know, there's typically the description of what the trainer card does. You then get a full art version of the card, and again, something people aren't pointing out much, probably because no one cares. His hair is like touching the Professor's Research part, which is kind of weird to me. It's still readable, but I'm just so curious why that had to be done, like why either of these two had to be done. These two seem like very superfluous cards, and believe it or not, this is where my tone is going to start changing about Celebrations. So the Mew, love it, very colorful, very shiny. One thing I will note, they put like these little dots of color in, which I think is so dope. I don't know if that's in other gold cards as well, but I love the shiny Mew. It's really, really pretty, and I think it's a very outstanding card. Interestingly enough, it is not a secret rare, right? It is the 25th card of the 25th card. So there you go, full set. So that concludes the 25 regular cards in the set. Now, Pokebeach does add some additional context. So, you know, the full art and the holo foil will, you know, function similar to the other ones. So here is the Celebrations Surfing Pikachu VMAX. You can see it has that good old texture like it always do. And then for the regular cards, like I said, holographic card, non-holographic stamp, which some people have, you know, been more or less unimpressed with. Here are some of the literal remakes that they made. As I mentioned, the Pikachu is just expanded artwork, but the Flying Pikachu and the Surfing Pikachu were originally illustrated. You can see here that this illustrator illustrated it, right? And I'm not going to attempt to butcher his name, but over here you'll see that it was a CG company that reanimated the card. So you can see they very closely follow the animation style, but then they kind of add a little bit of old flair. So next up is the Classic Collections, and the Classic Collections is going to be the 25 reprinted cards from the TCG's history. Each card was once loved by collectors and extremely popular in decks of its era. So it's one of those things. This is going to be the subset. This is going to be like, you know, the shiny vault or whatever they're calling it. They're calling it Classic Collections though, which I guess is a thing. So here is the full list, and yeah, we're just gonna plow through them yet again. All right, here we go. So Blastoise. Blastoise is, yeah, literally reprint. They're the big three. What do you want me to say? They are what they are. They each have a very nice texture and holographic to them. So, you know, it's one of those things. I borderline want to question, like, hey, why did we have to do these cards again? But they are the big three. You know, it's weird because as much as we've seen base set Charizard reprinted and rewashed and recoded, it is nice that they are doing as much as, you know, reprinting it again. Especially given the added context of last year where first edition box breaks were a big thing. So at least this time you can go as far as to try to pull one of these again without having to pay an arm and a leg. Next up is Imposter Professor Oak. No one asked for you. The Dark Gyarados. The only reason they included Dark Gyarados in here is because they didn't want to include Shining Gyarados in here, and the only reason they didn't want to include Shining Gyarados in here is because they had already included Shining Magikarp in here. There's my hot take. Yeah. Here comes Team Rocket, one of those really cool old school cards from back in the day. Obviously Team Rocket themselves are almost as, you know, unanimously known as Pikachu or Ash or Brock and Misty from the original anime. So it's nice because I guess you get that sort of aesthetic, but it's funny because I feel like there were better ways of reprinting this card. They were probably almost better off reprinting the one from Hidden Fates as opposed to this one. It more closely mirrored and looked like the anime. So if that's the nostalgia trip they were trying to play up for here, they were better off doing the Hidden Fates thing. But perhaps it's one of those things where this card was very popular for one reason or another back in the day. That's why they chose to reprint it. Rocket's Zapdos, I love this card. I think the artwork is so unique, so I'm happy they reprinted it because it's one of those cards that doesn't get enough hype, if you ask me. Birthday Pikachu is another one of those very infamous cards. It was given away as a promo, and the intention was if it was your birthday, you would do like 50 more damage. And then people would lie about their birthday in order to get the ability to do more damage. So it's actually pretty funny because this card has a little bit of history to it, and now you're going to be able to get another Birthday Pikachu. What's funny is that this card has gone up a lot in price because a lot of people would write their name on, you know, as intended. But obviously in the collecting scene, that's a big no-no, and so now this card, the original version, has shot up in value. So nice that, you know, you'll be able to get the the Celebrations version, I guess. Cleffa almost nearly has to be because this Pokemon was in a lot of decks at the time. It is a hilariously cute artwork, I will say that much. I love the fact that its little like nubs are holding on to yarn, and I love the fact that it's called Baby Pokemon, which is pretty funny. They couldn't just call it a basic Pokemon. No, it's a baby. Next up is the Shining Magikarp. This is what I was complaining about earlier. Obviously, it was out of, I believe, Neo Rev alongside the Shining Gyarados, and again, they're just soft because the only reason they didn't include the Shining Gyarados is because they already included this, and the only reason they included this is because there's probably no better artwork for Magikarp, even though you probably want a nice Shining Magikarp in the set anyway, since Magikarp is another one of those Pokemon. Team Magma's Groudon, can't really tell you why this card is in here aside from the fact that it would have had to have been popular in sets. There are better Groudon depictions, and I'm an EX collector and I'm saying this, so just imagine that. Even within like our era, like the EX era, there are so many better depictions of Groudon, from Hidden Legends to, you know, a variety. Look, long story short, they could have done better with this. I'm nearly positive this has to be because it had some mechanic to it that was very, very good in the TCG meta back in the day. Rocket's Admin is another one of those cards. This came out of Team Rocket Returns. I like this. Again, it has to be because of the TCG, because there's nothing about this artwork that really screams like, nostalgia. Next up is the Mew EX. Definitely a nostalgia play here. Definitely another shout out to Mew here. Gardevoir EX, again, similar thing. I assume that 80 was a big amount of damage back in the day, and it's also pretty dope because a lot of people don't realize this, but many Delta species Pokemon were not typically typed, so you got a lot of Pokemon that were like metal type when they were electric, psychic type but were now fire type, etc, etc. So it's pretty dope because it's one of those things where a lot of people wouldn't even know that this existed, especially if you were cut off from the vintage eras. So this is one of those things where I'm super happy that they reprinted a card like this, because it really helps stick home the point like, hey, this is a known part of Pokemon's history. Of course, we would be foolish not to talk about the Umbreon Gold Star card. I'm glad they chose this one. The Espeon, it looks a little too Jelly Beanish for me in its original form, and obviously reprinting it would have not helped that at all. So I'm happy they chose this. I assume it was somewhere between the Mew Gold Star, the Charizard Gold Star, the Rayquaza Gold Star, and the Umbreon Gold Star. And I assume the thought was, oh, Evolutions is coming out? Alright, let's do the Umbreon so that there's at least some sort of linkage there that people can continue off of. Next up is the Claydol from a random set. I mean, hey, happy for them. Apparently it was very playable way back in the day, and so a lot of people really liked the card for that reason. So that's why it's a card that they've included in the set. Again, many collectors won't go after this card with much intent, and I think frankly it was a wasted spot in the 25 cards in the classic collections, but hey. The Luxray, another one of those cards. It just looked like a card out of time. Super happy they brought it back, because at least people will get to see what a level X card looked like, how it worked. Here's another one. Of course, Cynthia's Garchomp makes the cut. It has to, given the amount of people it's probably traumatized in the video games over the years, especially if your Ice-type Pokemon died earlier. The Donphan Prime card. I really hope there's a lot of people out here that have a lot of affinity for this card. I personally don't, but then again, who am I? I never played the TCG, and I wasn't quite collecting as much back in the day at this point in time when this card was released, so hopefully it brings a lot of people nostalgia. Next up is the Reshiram and the Zekrom. These are the ones I was mentioning earlier. It's the original black and white era reprints. These were the first ever full art cards, fun fact. So this is where your full art bonanza originally started, with these two cards way back in black and white. Next up is Mewtwo EX from the XY era. It's another one of those cards. I'm happy it made the cut. So is Xerneas EX and Mega Rayquaza EX. These three cards, I don't know that they were worth the reprint, but I assume a major reason for it was because they were very playable back in the day. And the thing is that, this is 2015, so this is like 5, 6, 7 years now ago. Mewtwo's from 2012, so it's not like it was a little whiles ago. Some of these cards are very old when you think about it. Like that Mewtwo is going to be 10 years next year. So it's one of those things, like, these cards are getting up there in age, so it's actually pretty funny. Then you have the Tapu Lele GX, right? And that, I believe, is the last card. And again, this card was incredibly playable in the TCG, so that is why they brought it up and decided to reprint it, even though you could probably still grab one of these on TCG Player or something of the sort. Here are some images of the cards themselves, so you can see it has like that McDonald's freckle logo on it. Here's what the birthday Pikachu looks like, the Groudon, the Donphan, and the Reshiram. So they all have texture, and they all have that McDonald's Celebrations printing to them, which I guess is pretty neat. It is what it is. And then obviously you have the promos. Not really much to say about them other than, they're just more reprints from various sets. You have the Pikachu VMAX, quite literally from Vivid Voltage. You have the Dragapult Prime card. Lance's Charizard looks really dope. It looks very cartoonish, which I really appreciate. The Dark Sylveon, however, they could have done better with the way they went about it. It's usually a very light, fluffy Pokemon, so to make it a Dark-type Pokemon, they have to do more than just give it like a squinting eye. The Zacian level X, it looks really, really cool, actually. I love that animation. And then you have the Mimikyu Delta species. This is what I was talking about. It's a Pokemon that's Delta species, so it gets a weird typing. So this is usually a Ghost-type Pokemon. It's now a Water-type Pokemon. Congrats. Light Toxtricity. This is a Johto-type Pokemon from back in the Neo era. So I love the fact that this Pokemon card is legitimately looks like it's from the era. I find that amazing. And as you can see, each of these cards this card cannot be used at official tournaments, so these cards are not playable. You've got the Hydreigon C from the Generation 4 era, and then here's the Pikachu V Union, which has so many different Pokemon Pikachus in it. Love that one right here. And then finally but not least, the Pikachu V, the Greninja Gold Star, which, do as you wish with that. Here's the gold Pikachu V, here's the gold Pokeball that are given in the Ultra Premium Collection, and finally but not least, the gold Charizard and gold Pikachu metal cards that you will receive as part of your Ultra Premium Collection. So that concludes every single card from Celebrations, my thoughts on it, and where I sort of sit with most of this stuff. Now, sincerely, truly, honestly, I love the fact that many people are going to be experiencing and pulling cards that I love and appreciate so much. So I definitely think that's cool, and I definitely think that it will get people interested in collecting other cards aside from Modern, which again is super cool, right? It's weird because vintage Pokemon is obviously such a big thing, but you'd be surprised how many people get into Modern and stop right there and don't realize that there are so many other aspects to Pokemon card collecting that they completely miss. So I think Celebrations will hopefully serve as a bridge for them to sort of get into other areas of the hobby. And Worst case scenario, they try it out and they don't like it, but I'm happy that at a minimum, they get to try something new and experience a different aspect of the hobby. But with all that said, friends, thanks again for checking out another video. As always, I appreciate your viewership and you stopping by, and I hope you had a great time watching today's video. But other than that, friends, thanks again for checking it out, and we will talk soon. Peace.